With previews for Tarkir Dragonstorm in full effect, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the Precon videos that I like to do little upgrade guides for. Now, unlike my other videos in the past, I'm not going to be able to do a full breakdown on the videos because I'm under some time constraints. But for now, let's get started with the SULTAI deck, the SULTAI Arisen Precon, and to have some ideas about what the commanders do in it, as well as cards I would recommend to add to the deck. So let's start this off with Teval, the Balanced Scale. For one, a black, a green, and a blue. It's a spirit dragon with flying. It's a 4/4 that when it attacks, you mill 3 cards. Then you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you get a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. So the idea here is you automatically get one of these zombie druid tokens off of Teval when it attacks because you get something from your graveyard back to the battlefield. So we're going to want to chalk the deck full of things that are going to bring things either straight to the battlefield or back to our hand in order to actually get this effect. But you want to do it like one at a time. You don't want to do it in bursts. That's why Delve, is a good mechanic, but I'm not going to use it in this deck, and that includes the new Teval that comes in the main set. I'm going to leave it out of the deck because I don't want to be taking huge chunks of cards out of the deck. I want to take them out in little bits to get more of these zombie tokens. The other side of this coin, though, is Kotis Sibzig Champion. For a black, a green, and a blue. It's a 3/3 zombie warrior that says once during each of your turns, you can cast a creature spell from your graveyard by exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard in addition to paying its other costs. And whenever one or more creatures you control enter, if they entered from a graveyard or was cast from a graveyard, you put 2 counters on Kotis. Now, again, I'm not trying to tear bursts of cards out of my graveyard, and it's nice being able to bring stuff out of the graveyard this way, but he's a lot less exciting to me than what Teval, the Balanced Scale, is. So for this, I'm going to actually keep him in the 99 and just have Teval lead the deck in terms of the recommendations I'm going to make. So what am I going to recommend? Well, let's talk about some self-mill ideas for the deck. Starting off with a card that came from Aether Drift, Lost Monarch of Ifnir. For 3 and a black, it's a zombie noble with Afflict 3 and gives other zombies Afflict 3. And at the beginning of your second main phase, if a player was dealt combat damage by a zombie, you mill 3 cards. And then you can return a creature card from the graveyard to your hand. So again, we're trying to get things into the yard and then back out of the graveyard to trigger Teval. So it's going to give our zombies in the deck, the Afflict stuff, including the zombie druid tokens. Then it also gives us a self-mill trigger off of this in order to bring something back and trigger Teval. I also want to try to include a copy of Barrogoyf for 2 and a black. It's a Lurgoyf with Death Touch and Lifelink. Its power and toughness is equal to the number of card types among all cards in all graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that number plus 1. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you mill that many cards, and if you do, you may put a creature card from among them into your hand. So again, multi-purpose creature. It's got a big self-mill capability, to be able to smack our opponents, mill a bunch of stuff, get some good life back off of it with lifelink. It can tear down just about any creature it gets into combat with because of the death touch, and you get to bring a creature card from the milled cards back to your hand, so then you get another Teval trigger. The last of the self-mill cards I recommend here is actually Thematic for the set, and that is Sidisi Brood Tyrant. For 1, a black, a green, and a blue, Snake Shaman. It's a 3/3 that says when it enters or attacks, mill 3 cards, and whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. This came from the original Cons of Tarkir set, and it works perfectly here in the deck. It mills us, it fills the grave up, creates zombie tokens off of any mills, including anything outside of her own attack trigger and enters trigger. It just makes it a perfect fit for the deck. Now, we're doing all this milling and trying to get cards into the yard, so what can we add to this deck to bring things back out of the grave? Well, let's start off with 6 from the Modern Horizons 3 set. For 2 and a green, it's a Tree Folk with Reach, 2/4, that when it attacks, you mill 3, and then you can put a land card from among the milled cards into your hand, and during your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have Retrace, which means you can discard a land card, pay its casting cost, and you get it back onto the battlefield. So this is going to serve a few different functions for us. It has the mill trigger when you can swing safely at somebody. it gets a land back from the milled card. So that right there is already a trigger for Tevel. And then if you retrace something, that will trigger it again. And there's a lot of things going on with 6 that work really well within the deck. In the same vein as 6, I also want to use Raoul Troubleshooter. For 1, a blue and a black. It's a zombie mutant rogue 1/4 that says when during each of your turns, you can cast a spell from among the cards in your graveyard that were milled this turn. You can do that 1 time per turn, and you can tap and make each player mill a card. So this comes from the Fallout Precons, and it fits a very similar rule to 6. It allows you to replay a spell from the milled cards during the same turn as the mill, and it's got a little self-mill built into it, making a nice include for the deck. But unlike 6, the spells can be anything cast from the yard. So if you cast something and it's really good in this deck. And then the last card from this little subset of cards I want to recommend is one I actually recommended for the Eternal Might Precon from Aether Drift, and that's Tortured Existence. For a black, you get an enchantment that says pay a black, discard a creature card, return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So for the second set in a row, we get a deck that would really like to use Tortured Existence. This works really well with Hashaton from Eternal Might, but it's going to work really nicely here, as well as a repeatable way to swap creatures from our hand with ones that have been milled, discarded, or died previously, all while having Tevel make zombie druids for us. However, whatever amount of black mana that we have available, all you need to do is have 1 creature in the grave and 1 in your hand to repeatedly swap them back and forth, netting a new zombie druid each time you do the Tortured Existence loot type effect. So we have some upgrades for our self-mill, some upgrades for our getting stuff out of the yard to trigger Tevel over and over. So what kind of other synergy can we add to this deck? Well, why don't we start off with Gilt Leaf Archdruid for 3 green. It's a 3/3 elf druid. It says whenever you cast a druid spell, you can draw a card, and then you can tap 7 untapped druids you control to gain control of all lands target player controls. The Precon comes with several druids in the deck, and Tevel's trigger actually makes zombie druids. So this should get some cards as we cast the druids that come in the deck, as well as hitting the critical mass to steal an opponent's lands. And the ability does not require summoning sickness to be going off, so all you gotta do is drop this in and heist somebody's lands at your leisure. Now, if that's not your cup of tea, how about something like Insidious Roots, a black and green enchantment that says creature tokens you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color, and whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, you create a 0/1 green plant creature token and put a +1/+1 counter on each plant you control. So with the deck wanting to shift cards in and out of the graveyard, it makes a great place for Roots to also get plant tokens as well as Tevel's zombie druids, and it also grants those zombie druids the tap, add 1 mana of any color effect off the Roots. So there's a lot of good synergies going on there. We also have 1 more card I'm going to recommend under this subcategory of Sir Conrad the Grim. For 3 black, it's a human knight that says whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then you can pay 1 in a black, and each player mills a card. There is just a lot going on with Sir Conrad here. First and foremost, anything dies or is milled into the graveyard, it's going to start blasting your opponents. Anytime we make them leave the graveyard, it's going to blast the opponents. And it has its own self-mill trigger, or activation attached to it. It's just like the Insidious Roots, and with Tevel, he likes seeing things leaving the graveyard, so we're going to get a lot of nice value whenever we pull something out of the grave, and then whenever we're milling things into the grave. Now, last but not least, let's talk about some thematic things for this deck. A lot of people really like when I recommend cards from the main set. Now, not all the entire set has been revealed as of the time of recording, but I'm going to make some recommendations of some cards I've seen that I think would fit really well within the Precon. Starting off with Sidisi, Regent of the Mire. For 1 and a black, it's a zombie snake warlock. It's a 1/3 that has tap, sack creature you control with mana value X other than Sidisi. Return target creature card with mana value X+1 from your graveyard to the battlefield, only activate as a sorcery. So the newest CDC has been labeled the unbirthing pod as it reanimates rather than searches through your deck to get a creature, but it uses that same wording that a birthing pod uses for what it can go get. It gives us a nice way to feed creatures that have outlived their usefulness, something that maybe it has an ETB trigger and then doesn't really do anything else, into the grave, and then you can swap that with select creatures out of your grave that might have died, or you've stacked them to other things going on, or they got discarded or milled in, or whatever. And it also then triggers our commander to give, and it has a chance to use these cards over again to get that creature back later to use again. And then I'm going to recommend one of the new sieges that they've put in, the Glacierwood Siege. For one, a green and a blue. As this enchantment enters, choose Teamer or Sultai. If you choose Teamer, it's going to allow you to cast an instant or sorcery spell and mill 4 cards for a target player. Or if you choose Sultai, you can play lands from your graveyard. So either way, you're going to get some functionality off of this enchantment that you want. You can either set it up so where you cast your instants and sorceries, you can target yourself and mill 4 cards to give yourself more self-mill, or maybe you have enough mill going on, you don't really need that extra mill, you can choose Sultai and start playing lands out of your graveyard, which will then trigger Insidious Roots, it'll trigger Sir Conrad, it'll trigger Tevel, all these things will get going either way, depending on what you need at the time. And then last of the stuff that's already been revealed that I would recommend is Awaken the Honored Dead. For a black, green, and a blue. It's an enchantment saga that has 3 chapters of destroy target non-land permanent for chapter 1, mill 3 for chapter 2, or chapter 3, you may discard a card, and when you do, return target creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. So alongside with the other cycles that have come along in this set, we got these new clan aligned sagas, and this one is the Sultai one, and every chapter is going to be giving us something we want to be doing with this deck. We get to destroy a non-land permanent, we get to mill cards into the yard to feed our plans, and we get the ability to discard a card and return a creature card or a land card even from the graveyard to our hand, so we can then trigger Tevel and all these other things. There's just a lot of good things going on with this enchantment, and I would highly recommend including it in the deck when you go to upgrade it. So that's the small handful of cards I would recommend trying to fit into the SULTAI Arisen deck. Again, unfortunately, I'm just kind of pinched for time, so I don't have any way of doing, cuts, and I'm not going to go over any of the new cards. You guys can see those in the deck lists and kind of make your own decisions on that. But with that said, let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. All of those things help the channel grow. And as always, thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.